Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our webinar. I sure appreciate everyone taking the time out of their busy day to join us. This is a webinar which is part of our ongoing series of our educational training webinars offered as a free professional courtesy by ClearlyIP. Today's event is all about the fundamentals of SIP trunking, a SIP trunking 101. I'll be your presenter today. My name is Bree Fernie. For those of you who don't know me, I've been in the industry for about 20 years now, and I was so excited to join the folks at ClearlyIP last year in the role of Chief Marketing Officer. This webinar includes Tony Lewis as well. He's alongside me. He's our CEO, and he'll be joining us with the live demo and Q&A segment. Tony's going to show us live how you go into a SIP trunking store and get a SIP trunk configured and working, and he'll do this using an open source platform called FreePBX. I think most of you that's joined today are familiar with FreePBX. It'll be a great example for everyone to see how easy it is to configure and get using SIP trunking. You know, SIP is quite the buzzword lately, so we felt what better to educate and train on a topic that our customers are asking us about on a regular basis. So let's dive in. SIP trunking is taking the business world by storm, especially right now. And no matter what size of business or sector, companies utilize SIP trunking for many of its advantages. Our team at ClearlyIP gets the chance to talk with customers every day who are excited about the possibilities that SIP trunking offers for their business. But the average person is generally unfamiliar with how it works or what to expect. So we thought it would be an excellent opportunity to explain some of SIP trunking's real benefits. This will be useful for people to understand the aspects of SIP trunking better and why they should take advantage of the services. So we will be reviewing this in a what, why, and how format. So let's get started here. SIP stands for Session Initiation Protocol. SIP trunking is a method of sending voice and other unified communication services over the internet. It works with an IP-enabled PBX, which stands for Private Branch Exchange. SIP trunking replaces traditional telephone lines, or PRIs. Before SIP became a popular and reliable method of transmitting voice signals, telephone calls were primarily carried over the public switched telephone network, PSTN. The PSTN is the network of the copper phone lines we traditionally associate with the telephone. The PSTN is a circuit switched network which requires a physical connection between 2 points to complete a call, whereas SIP trunks are virtual phone lines that enable users to make and receive phone calls over the internet versus over copper lines. So to anyone in the world with a phone number. SIP trunks utilize a packet switch network in which voice calls are broken down into digital packets and then sent across a network to the final destination. So the old-fashioned public switched telephone network with lines are soon a thing of the past. Today's telephony is rapidly moving away from PSTN connections and into the world of flexible and modern SIP trunking. Now, the world's most popular telecom providers are phasing out old functionality and solutions and have already begun to make the move towards IP, making SIP trunking an inevitable upgrade solution. So it's not really a matter of if, it's a matter of when you will move to SIP trunks. So let's talk about SIP channels. What are SIP channels? Well, each SIP trunk supports SIP channels. A SIP channel is equivalent to one incoming or outgoing call. A SIP trunk can hold an unlimited number of SIP channels. So users only need one SIP trunk, no matter how many concurrent calls they expect. The number of channels required really depends on how many calls your business will make at any given time. So I'm going to give you an example to work with here. Let's use a company with 50 people, so 50 users, 50 phones. We know traditionally that this customer would likely need an 8 to 10 channel PRI-T1 service, which would allow 8 to 10 simultaneous calls in and out. But for most of the time, they peak at 10. The beauty with SIP trunking and with our platform is you can buy the 10 channels you need at X amount per month, and then you can also pay per minute when you need to burst up for those peak times to enable being able to answer more calls than the 10 you've subscribed to. So let's break this down in some numbers. So $24.99 a channel times 10 channels lines is $249.99 per month. Let's now add in 5,000 minutes of bursting. So that would be 5,000 minutes times 0.09 cents per minute is another $45. So let's take that $295 a month for the 10 SIP trunks and 5,000 burstable minutes. So that's the $245 plus the $45, $295 a month. If you compare that to the cost of a PRI, $295 for the SIP trunks versus somewhere around $600 to $1,000 for a 10-channel PRI per month. And then on top of that, if you take a 3-year contract, we offer a 3-year contract at ClearlyIP for SIP trunks, it would bring that cost per channel even lower. So those 10 channels now at $17.99 a channel, which would make that $179.99 a month versus that $600 to $1,000 per month for PRI. So that's a potential of $800 in savings per month. Let's take that to $9,600 in savings per year, nearly $30,000 in savings over a 3-year term. So I hope that helps paint the picture of the cost savings of making that transition from a PRI service to SIP trunking service. Now let's talk a little bit more about bursting. With SIP trunks, you have the ability to burst up. So if at certain times you get more calls than normal, a lot of times people would need to have more PRI lines because it just simply isn't as flexible. So the beautiful thing about SIP is if you notice your call volume going up at certain times, you can set it up so that you can burst up or add another channel, and this takes minutes versus having to order a second PRI trunk service with more channels, which will be at a substantial increased fixed cost per month. And then you'll also have to think about what hardware you're going to need to accommodate that additional PRI trunk. So with SIP, it will also include most of your long distance within a large footprint in North America and super low rates for international calling. And for those of us that grew up only having access to copper lines, that can truly seem like magic. ClearlyIP has a formula to help customers. We can help determine how many channels, aka lines, you need so that we can come up with a formula to figure this out to guide you of how many SIP trunks you'll need and channels, etc. So another question we're asked on a regular basis is, what is the difference between SIP and VoIP? And although SIP and VoIP are often used interchangeably, they are not the same thing. VoIP stands for Voice over Internet Protocol. It is a broad term that covers any phone calls made over the internet. It includes a group of protocol technologies of which SIP is an example. And SIP is one of the specific protocols that enable VoIP. So all SIP is voice, but not all VoIP is SIP. So we understand now that for the uninitiated, SIP trunks are telephone line trunks that are delivered over an IP network using the SIP protocol. And using this method, telecom service and VoIP providers can connect multiple channels to a customer's PBX. DIDs, or pronounced DIDs, direct inward dial numbers and phone numbers, can be linked to the same SIP trunk, and numbers can often be ported into a SIP trunk too. So back to the customer scenario example I just gave you on PRI lines versus trunks, you can also have an unlimited number of phone numbers with SIP trunking versus with PRI can only support a certain bank of DIDs, DIDs, or phone numbers. So if you have one SIP trunk, you can literally have an unlimited number of phone numbers. The channels simply don't matter. You could have 1,000 phone numbers on one SIP trunk if you wanted. You can also have an unlimited number of phone numbers with SIP trunking versus PRI can only support a certain bank of DIDs or phone numbers. SIP trunks offer a range of unique benefits over PSTN-based solutions, and I'll be going over those unique benefits in a minute. It's important when looking for a SIP trunk provider that you really be thorough and ask yourself these questions. 1, what is this SIP trunk provider's infrastructure and global reach? 2, what is their porting process and associated costs for porting your phone numbers? 3, do they support E911 dispatchable locations? 4, are they Carey's Law and RABOM Act compliant? 5, what is their service and support? Can you call them if you need help, or are they an online chat support only? And lastly, 6, does the SIP trunking provider have an admin portal so you can access your own services and manage them? 6 super important questions and criteria you're going to want to review when choosing your SIP trunking partner. So let's talk about the 3 primary requirements of Carey's Law and the RABOM Act, as this is super important to know. Those primary requirements include 1, eliminate dialing 9 for 911 calls. So you want to work with a provider that does not require a prefix when dialing 911. Next, ensure your provider has the ability with emergency notifications to be sent to designated extensions for personnel, alerting them to the emergency. And then lastly, confirm that the SIP trunk provider can route 911 calls to be transmitted to the appropriate first responder with a dispatchable location. Not all SIP trunking providers are Carey's Law and RABOM Act compliant, more so in the United States than in Canada. This is absolutely necessary, especially with these given times and all of our remote workers. We held a webinar actually on Carey's Law and the RABOM Act, 2 partners and a general audience last month, as we at ClearlyIP recognize the importance of being proactive with technology and compliance deadlines. So we really don't put our head in the sand and just hope for the best. These laws are for our protection and safety of everyone. So SIP trunk providers had to be Carey's Law compliant in the United States by February 16th of 2020. And then the RABOM Act goes into effect last month, February 16th, 2021 for on-premise systems, and then the same date for February 16th next year for hosted cloud off-premise systems. So as a SIP trunking provider, we can assist you with being compliant. And if you're considering using SIP trunks, just make sure your provider is compliant, as this could negatively impact your business. It is as easy as asking the questions, are you Carey's Law and RABOM Act compliant? Do you have E911 dispatchable locations set up on our system, or can you? And confirm that you can dial 911 on your system without having to dial 9 to make the call out. Let's move on to why you should be utilizing SIP trunking for business. So we all now understand that SIP trunks are telephone line trunks that are delivered over an IP network using the SIP protocol, and that using this method, telecom providers can connect multiple channels to a customer PBX. DIDs, DIDs, and phone numbers can be linked to the same SIP trunk, and numbers can often be ported into a SIP trunk too. SIP trunks offer just a huge range of unique benefits over traditional PSTN connections and PSTN-based solutions. Let's go over those. Lower costs for monthly line rentals thanks to fewer lines installed at your office. Lower call charges thanks to competition amongst SIP trunk providers. Some SIP trunks even offer unlimited call volume. Better customer service offered through more geographical and international numbers. Businesses can easily and efficiently add numbers to their SIP solutions and terminate them too, since customers can contact companies with greater ease This means that sales increase too. SIP trunks aren't bound to a location, which means that you can move offices without having to change your phone numbers. You can eliminate VoIP gateways as all phone calls arrive via IP. So this means no extra conversion and can maximize quality too. Modern IP PBXs and unified communication solutions offer customers enhanced productivity, better sales, improved mobility. Connecting your IP PBX to a SIP trunking solution is far easier than using traditional PSTN lines. Plus, it's just easier to include additional channels on your SIP trunk to handle your increase of call traffic compared to increasing hard physical lines. With SIP trunks, you can select the perfect number of channels for your unique requirements. On the other hand, with ISDN and traditional phone lines, you'd have to choose a specific number of lines, and those were fixed. Lastly, unlimited access to global phone numbers for your business and your team. So if you have offices or personnel all over the world and you want to market a local phone number to a specific area or region, you will now have access to phone numbers any place, anywhere globally. That's pretty cool. So let me talk a little bit about our platform and some of our features that make ClearlyIP a very desirable SIP trunking partner. We offer on-demand cloud SIP trunking, which means you can start calling quickly without the complexity of multiple configuration steps or the inconvenience of waiting days for changes to be made on your platform. We offer failover and redundancy. So we provide failover and redundancy to your trunking to circumvent PBX, network, and/or data center outages. We enable self-service. Our extensive dashboard allows you to manage most aspects of your SIP trunking services. You can add DIDs, call pass users with ease. We support toll-free voice. You will have the ability to easily add toll-free numbers to your business or port existing numbers to our service to enjoy a low monthly inbound toll-free rates. Number porting. So we know that your existing phone numbers are critical and so important and invaluable to you. We will make porting your numbers easy so that you keep them. And last couple here, international calling. We support outbound international service, and you can add or remove that to any account as you need. And finally, E911. We offer seamless E911 integration that provides system integrators and end users compliance and peace of mind with those recently introduced Kerry's Law and Raybaum Act. So as you can see, there are so many benefits with SIP trunking, platform compatibility, phone numbers virtually everywhere. Keep your existing hardware. We can connect to existing legacy systems, PBXs, ATAs, and even soft phones. We have a tier 1 redundant network, so it's important with your partner that your trunking are backed by a fully geo-redundant infrastructure like ours, which will provide industry-leading business continuity for your business communications and scalable SIP trunks. You really only need to pay for the connections you need without the risk of rejecting calls by enabling on-demand capacity. That's one of our unique benefits. With on-demand capacity, if your call volumes increase, you're still covered. You'll still be able to answer those calls. And at ClearlyIP, we offer a free trial so that you don't make your business decisions in a vacuum. You can give our service a try before you buy. It's the best way to make the right decision. So we've addressed how SIP trunking can give you the power to enhance your business experience. Once you've chosen a provider, hopefully ClearlyIP, you can choose a dedicated internet line for your SIP trunking, or also SIP trunks can simply go on your in-place high speed. Since many firewalls can handle several WAN connections and internet lines are often low cost, a separate VoIP connection can be a great way to enhance the quality of your VoIP calls. At ClearlyIP, we can even bundle our service options with dedicated internet lines for VoIP. So this process can keep your voice traffic separated from your data traffic. However, the outcome of your choices will depend largely on the cost of your upgrades and your network infrastructure. So we can help you look at that and determine the best route for you. Remember, you can also upgrade your PBX to an on-premise IP PBX And unlike with PSTN lines, which are often connected to hardware-based PBX solutions, and IP PBX can offer you an easy to manage and flexible solution. If you're not ready to go to the cloud or a hosted platform, which includes SIP trunks for your connectivity, then why not upgrade your services to an on-premise IP PBX and leverage the benefits of flexibility and modern refinements that truly only IP telephony can bring. So I promise you do not need to be a networking or telecommunications expert to take advantage of SIP trunking for your business. Again, choose a strong partner like ClearlyIP because we will help walk you through that implementation process and support you as the needs of your business changes over time. I mentioned a free trial. We offer a free trial as you can then fire up a SIP trunk in our store in a matter of seconds. It's really as easy as 1, 2, 3. And this is where I'm going to hand things over to Tony because Tony will step in, do a live demo, and show everyone here how easy it is to configure and fire up a SIP trunk on our ClearlyIP trunking portal. Tony, did you want to take over here?
Yep.
Great.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Tony with ClearlyIP. You should be able to see my screen at this point. So we're just kind of walk through our dashboard portal here for trunking and the different pieces of it. And we're going to do a quick connection to free PBX as one of our preferred PBX providers that we recommend with our SIP trunking. Our SIP trunking can work with any provider. We've done a lot of nice integration into free PBX-based systems to make it easier. So we'll show you that here after we kind of walk through the store. So I'm logged into our trunking.clearlyip.com, and anyone can go there. You can create an account on demand. There's a sign up button. You can create your account on demand, and once you verify your account, you can log in. And from here, the real crux of buying SIP trunking is all handled under the products and services tab. There's an account tab here, which kind of is information about your organization and users. So for example, under organization, I can see information about my company. I can set my billing and shipping addresses. I can set different type of contacts. So technical, billing, porting, and sales. And I can have one or more contacts. I can add contacts under the contact section here. So I can simply go to count contacts and I can add new contacts. And once I add a contact, I can choose if I want to give them login ability into the store. So if you enable login, then they can log in. Otherwise, they're just a contact for things like you might put a billing contact in, but not let them log in. Invoices will show a history of all your invoices and let you download your invoices and show you the status of them at any given time. CDRs will show all the call history on your account. And we can even filter for a specific location. So we can say, I want to go look at my location here. We'll use this location. I can filter just to that location. And I can see for every call if it's inbound or outbound. And I can see if it used what we call our subscription call paths, where you don't pay per minute. So you'll see the amount billed is $0 versus it uses metered, where you pay per minute, and you can see what the cost is for that call. So quickly, and then you can hit the download button to download these CDRs at any time. You can pick a date range. And then payment methods are where you kind of manage your credit cards. And if you have terms, it'll show your terms with us. We do offer terms for institutions and government agencies and private sector that are, we do have a minimum requirement, usually of $250 a month to qualify for terms. Otherwise, it's a credit card that you will fill in when you make your purchase, and we'll charge the credit card every month. And here's where you could manage your credit cards and add new ones if you needed to. So under products and services, everything starts at a location. A location is generally a single phone system. So if we go into the location, we'll see we have a whole bunch of different locations here. We're going to create a new location. And we're going to pick a SIP trunking location. And then we get to pick what type of call path we want, either subscription or metered. So a subscription call path allows for a single inbound or outbound call. And it comes with what we call a soft cap of 3,000 minutes. So it's for normal business usage with a soft cap of 3,000 minutes bundled with it. And you pay per call path. So if I said I have I want to make and receive 3 phone calls at a time and not pay per minute for those phone calls, I'd put 3 call pass, the quantity of subscription type. And then I pick a plan. Your plans are a 12-month contract, a 36-month contract, or just month to month. So if I go month to month, I'll see MSRP pricing is $74.97 for those 3 call pass. If I wanted a 36-month, we'll see the price changes to $53.97. So substantial discounts if you're doing contracts. We'll pick month to month here. And we're going to leave it, if we pick metered, you'll notice there's no charge for those call pass because you're paying per minute. So we'll go back to subscription and we'll hit next. Now we're going to give this a name. So we're going to give this a webinar test. Can enable SMS. So we have full support for inbound, outbound SMS and MMS. Into free PBX-based systems currently is the system it's supported for. So if you're using free PBX, we can deliver your SMS and MMS into free PBX, and you can send outbound SMS and MMS from free PBX and from the Clearly Anywhere mobile app that we have, if you're a Clearly Anywhere user. We can enable international calling. So that will allow us to call international and pay per minute. That per minute rate depends on what country you're calling and then where you're calling within that country. Especially outside when you get into Europe and stuff, rates to mobile are different than landline. We have a published rate deck like everyone does. It has thousands of rows to it. You'll look up the phone number you're calling if you want to know what the rate is. And then we can enable concurrency bursting. So if you remember earlier, we're buying 3 of our subscription call pass where you're not going to pay per minute for those 3 inbound or outbound calls. But if you have that occasion where you need to make a 4th or 5th call or receive a 4th or 5th or 6th call, we can enable concurrency bursting. And that will let us pay per minute with 99% of North America covered under 9/10 of a penny, so 0.009 cents of a minute or of a penny per minute for the calls. There are a few rate centers a little more expensive in North America, but that's most of North America, US and Canada. And then we can provide the address for billing, mainly for taxation purposes. We have to do taxation based on where that company is physically located. So you'll provide an address. We'll hit next. Now we can buy some phone numbers. So we'll pick Wisconsin and Appleton. And we'll get a list of all the numbers available, lots of numbers. So we can start grabbing numbers that we want. Let's say we wanted also some numbers in New York. We could then pick New York. And we'll pick Buffalo. And then we can add some Buffalo numbers. So you'll see all these numbers get added to your shopping cart on the right as you add them. So I'm going to get rid of 2 of these because we don't need that many. Then we're going to hit next. Oh, we can also get toll-free. So up here, we can pick toll-free, and we can pick what prefix we want, so like 855, and we can add toll-free numbers. We'll hit next. Now, this is where we can go in and add on emergency services. So by default, when you buy our Call Pass subscription, we give you a single free 911 location and dispatchable location and callback profile. You don't pay for it. You only pay if you want additional ones. So we're going to go ahead and add that free one on. It's going to auto fill in a name and description. Pick a language between English or French. Mainly French is there for our Canadian customers in Quebec, where French is pretty standard up there. So you can pick which language you want for 911. And then you're going to give what name is associated. So when you call 911, what name do you want sent? And then what is the emergency caller ID you're going to use? And what is the callback number, which could be separate. So you could have a different callback number, and there's scenarios for that for larger organizations where the callback number may be different than the caller ID you're sending. And then it's gonna pre-fill in the address information based on our location. You can change it if you want. We're gonna verify all this information, which is gonna use some API calls to verify this address is legitimate for the 911 operators, the PSAPs. So they're going to come back and notice it highlighted this green, and it actually changed Highview to be all capital, and it changed the city to be all capital. It's the way they wanted it, so it automatically changed it. you're having problems here getting your address to verify, you can contact support. They can work with you. 90% of the time, it verifies addresses fine, but there are areas that they're still struggling at times to verify addresses with the PSAPs, and we have to get a hold of the geolocation vendor and work with them to figure out why it's not being geotagged right. So we'll hit next. Pick our payment method. Normally it'd be your credit card you would add here, or one that if you had one on file already with us, you'd pick it. Agree to your terms, which were month to month, and we're done. So it's going to go create the invoice, charge the credit card if there was a credit card. It's going to bring up the location. It's going to go secure those DIDs that we bought, and then it's going to set up all the 911 records with the PSAPs. It's going to do this in 30 to 45 seconds. And once it's done, we'll get a close button here. There we go. So you notice we bought these 2 DIDs. We got the 911 all set up. It processed payment. So we are done at this point. And if we go look at our location, webinar test is here now. So we'll go view this location. And from here, we can see a bunch of information. So we can see a location ID. This is important when you're contacting support. We need to know the location ID. Also, account number if you're ever porting away from us, which we hope you never do. But if you did, that's your account number for this location. Name and description and address, again, for taxation purposes. So if that address ever changes, we can hit edit and update the address. Our plan is month to month, and it started on 3/3. Who our primary contact, it automatically sets it to be whoever was logged into the store. You could change this if you wanted. That's just some locations may have other different primary contacts than other locations have. And then we get our balances. So here, if you remember, we bought 3 subscription call pass, which include 3,000 soft minutes per call pass. We got a total bundle of 9,000 minutes a month. And we can see we've used 0 of it. We've set a $100 limit for metered that we don't want to spend more than $100 a month. We've used 0 of that. And that metered is for things like outbound SMS that you pay for, or outbound MMS. That metered is if you do any bursting. So if you enable bursting and you go beyond those 3 subscription call pass, that would be metered charges. And then international is a weekly limit. So this is 9,000 minutes a month. This is $100 a month. This is $10 a week of international calling. And then we can set, so we can see what our usage is at any given time. And we can set notifications by clicking the bell. So we can say on metered, notify me every day if I'm exceeding 75% of my balance, my $100 balance. And then you can set what are more email addresses that will notify. And you can do it for international too. And you can also do it for your soft cap. So we're going to close that. Then we get into our voice services. So we can see we have 3 subscription call pass. Oh, I must not enable. I thought I did, but international was disabled, so I just enabled it. We have 3 call pass of international by default and a $10 a week limit. Then I'm going to enable concurrency. And it gave me 20 of those with a $100 a month limit. If I want to change these limits, I hit the little pencil icon and I can hit adjust metered services. I can say, yeah, I don't want 3 international call pass. I only want 2. And I don't need 20 metered call pass because I don't want the risk if I ever got hacked for somebody to make 20 additional calls. I only need 10. And you'll notice there is a limit. So if I tried to do 50, I think it's going to say no. Nope, it will let me. If I try to do 100, it will. If I do 101, it's going to say you have to be 0 to 100. If you need to go above 100, contact support, and they have a little form you fill out, and we can take your ceiling up higher. So we can take your ceiling to 500 or 1,000, and then you can come in here and change it up to that new ceiling. So we'll put 10 in here. And then same with the limits, the dollar limits. So we have a $10 a week limit right now. And it's saying you're allowed to set this to anything up to $10. If you want more than $10, you got to fill out this form. We have to do some additional credit check with you. And then we can increase this international limit for you. So you can take it to 5 or 10, but you can't take it to 11. And then same with the monthly meter. By default, you get $100 for fraud reasons. You could make it be 50 or 10, but if you try to do 101, it's going to say nope. And again, there's a form you fill out if you want to request a higher limit. And then we can enable SMS, which we'll do here. So our accounts will be set up for SMS now, and we can send and receive if we're using a free PX-based system. And then we have our faxing. So everything we did was voice. We do have the ability to do faxing. You can buy fax call pass. And our faxing, we have a recorded webinar, I believe, up on our YouTube channel for this. So our faxing allows for inbound faxing to email, outbound faxing from email. So you just send an email to a special email address with the phone number that you want to fax to, and we convert it and send it. And it also has an API for any developers that want to build an application using our fax service. And pretty soon we'll be launching our fax-based, device-based faxing, where you can plug a fax machine into a little device you buy from us, and it will do all the faxing for you across any HTTPS connection. So that could be satellite internet or 4G, 5G, or traditional internet. Doesn't matter. Any bandwidth will work because it's all file-based faxing. It's not trying to do it across a SIP trunk. It sends the file to us, and we process it out of our data center. So you can come in here and buy fax call pass. So we can say, yep, I want to change a plan. And we sell it two ways. A low volume, which gives you 300 minutes a month or about 400 pages a month. And that is normally $9.99 a month. My test account isn't set up for that, apparently. Or I can buy high volume. And that's $24.99 a month, and that gives you 2,000 minutes or about 3,500 pages a month. And you can buy more than one of those, so you can say I want 2 high volumes, which would give you 4,000 minutes, or 2 low volumes for 600 minutes. So once we buy that, it'll add on the call pass for us, and we're done. And now we have some fax call pass. And then we can also do metered on that. So we can say we have 2 low volumes that bundled in 300 minutes each, or you could have bought one of those. And then you can do metered. You can say, I want to allow 5 more fax call pass, and you pay per minute on those for those fax calls. So if you exceed that 200 or that 300 minute limit, you can just pay per minute afterwards. You don't have to buy a high volume. Registration is for the voice services. We have up to 4 servers that you can register against for ultimate redundancy. Currently, we're not registered against any of them, so we haven't set up our PBX yet. Failover will let us set a failover per location. So in the event we try to deliver the call to your PBX and your PBX won't receive the call, we can set a failover. So we can say, I want a failover to another DID. And it can be any phone number. It could even be your cell phone number. And we say unreachable. So in the event we try to send the call to your PBX and your PBX rejects it or doesn't reply back, we will then automatically fail over all the DIDs from this location that don't have their own failover set. We'll use this global failover. So we can set failovers at a per DID level and global. And the logic says if the DID doesn't have a failover, look to see if the location has a failover. We can see our default emergency callback we set up for 911. We can see our SIP credentials and key codes for setting up this trunk. This key code's used for our APIs, like for faxing. It's also used when we set it up in free PBX for the auto setup, which we'll do here in a minute. And then port out. So this is really important to protect you against porting spam slamming, which is a really common thing in the industry. You can enable port out pins on our service. So you can say enable it, and you can set a PIN number. And now all your DIDs will be protected with this PIN. And what is it? 56778 I set. So now if you go to port those numbers out or somebody else tries to port them out, they have to know this PIN. This will keep you from unauthorized port outs because they have to know this PIN. Then we get our metered pricing widget here. So this is for anything that you do that is metered. And we're seeing voice calling because we enabled bursting. We're also seeing faxing here because we enabled faxing, and we're seeing SMS because we enabled that. It only shows you for things you have enabled. So in the event that you're bursting, beyond those 3 voice call pass you have, you're going to pay 9/10 of a penny for inbound and outbound. Toll free, you're paying for all inbound toll free, you're paying 2.1 cents a minute in this example. Faxing, you're paying 2.5 cents a minute for any bursting to local numbers inbound, 3 cents for inbound toll free, and 2.5 for inbound or outbound to North America. And then SMS, inbound is free on local numbers, toll free is 9/10 of a penny per message. MMS inbound is 1.5 cents, and MMS inbound toll free is 1.5. So you can see full disclosure of what your different metered rates are. Down here, we can see our phone numbers. So we can see we don't have CNAM set, and we don't have in port out pin. It will be once we go set it. There isn't the port out pin. If I refresh, it would show it because we just enabled that port out pin up here now. So if we go look here, we'll take this number, and we can see this phone number. We can see where it's assigned to. Let's say you had multiple locations. You wanted to move the number to a different location. You can hit the little guy here and pick a different location to move that number to. And that number will now be routed there, and billing moving forward will be on that new location. CNAM. So every DID, by default, you can set CNAM. That's the call ID name that's associated with the number that's stored into all the carrier databases. We let you set CNAM for free the first time on any number. So if it's not set, you can set it for free. And then after that, I think there's $1 charge each time you want to change it, which you almost never do. So you can come in here and set your business name. And then you can set what CNAM you want show it. And CNAM is limited to 16 characters. So we can do ClearlyIP as our CNAM. We'll hit next. There's no charge because we've never set it before, and this will go set CNAM into the databases, which can take a few weeks. Most of the stuff, most carriers nowadays will look at the more real-time databases that we set it in, which means it should be active within minutes. But there's some carriers who cache all that, and it may take up to even a month for that CNAM to be updated to some carriers. And then failover. This is where we can set a failover at this number level. So if we set a failover here, it won't use the global failover. It's kind of just some information on DIDs. So let's talk about setup for a quick second. We're going to go back to our location, and we're going to be using a free PBX system. So all I need is this key code. And I go to my free PBX system, and we have a module called Clearly Trunking for free PBX. If it's not on your system, our knowledge base, so kb.clearlyip, under SIP Trunking, we have up over here on the right, free PBX and PBXact systems. There's a guide on how to do it with the module right here, how to download the module and install it. So once we have the module installed, we just paste the key code in and hit submit. And this is going to go automatically create the 4 trunks to the 4 different servers we have for redundancy. Well, there it is. So now it's synced everything. So there's our webinar test location that we just created. We can see what the failover is because we set that location failover. It'll show here. We can also change the failover right from here. So if we change the failover to be a different number here, that will automatically update the trunking store with that change. So if we go look, it usually takes a couple seconds, but if we refresh here, we should see the number was changed to 3101 now for failover. Not quite yet. It will be in a second. So if we hit the blue button here, this is going to auto set up some outbound routes and trunks for us. Pick which of your DIDs you want as the primary call ID. Hit change, save. And then if we go look under trunks now in free PBX, we'll see it set up all 4 trunks and set the call ID for us. If we go look in outbound routes, we'll see it set up emergency outbound route with the proper call ID. And that is right with the way we do 911. And then it set up standard outbound and international with that 10-digit call ID we told it to use. If we go to inbound routes, you notice we don't have those 2 DIDs here yet. So if we go back to our module Clearly Trunking, there's a tab called Numbers. We'll see the 2 numbers are listed here that we bought in the store, but they're missing. The route 2 is missing. We click this little button, it's going to auto create those inbound routes for us. And those DIDs are now live. And if we go look in free PBX inbound routes, they'll actually be there. If we want to change where they route to, we can change that routing inside that inbound routes in free PBX or right from our module here. You can just click here and pick where you want to route this DID to. SMS numbers will show us what numbers are capable of SMS, and then we can pick what users this number belongs to for SMS. So we hit the little edit button, and we pick the different users from FreePBX that are allowed to use this number to send and receive SMSs on. So it can be one or more users. And we've now shared those SMS capabilities of those DIDs with those users. So those users now could, for example, log into UCP, the user control panel of FreePBX, and send and receive messages, or if they're using Clearly Anywhere, they could send and receive SMS or MMS from their Clearly Anywhere app. So we're going to hit reload here in FreePBX, so it applies all these changes, and those trunks are going to go register. We can actually be making receiving calls now. Last thing is emergency. So this is for 911. We will see in this example, we have one dispatchable location, and we have one callback profile that we bought from the store. From here, we can now start picking individual users and say, do we want them to use the global, or do we want to override? So we could say for user Mike Smith, we want it to use this callback profile and this dispatchable location. And for 1001, we could do the same thing. So this allows us to change the emergency dispatchable location and callback profile per user in FreePBX. And then we can set notifications for 911. So we can go to manage notifications. We can add a nice notification. Let's call this emergency. And we have 3 different ways we can send notifications. One can be SMS. We can say, yep, I want to use this number, and this is the message that's going to be sent. So I can say on, and then the date, at, and the time emergency call was placed by whoever. And then we can tell it who to send this to. And they can be any phone numbers that are capable of SMS, cell numbers, VoIP numbers, doesn't matter. And you can list more than one per row. And then we can do email settings. We can send an email out. So we can say, I want to send it from ClearlyIP, info@ClearlyIP, and I want to send it to however many emails you want to define. And then we can also do page. So we can page to a page group that you've already set up in FreePBX. So you just pick the page group, and now we will page that group and say, extension 101 just called 911, and then we'll drop you into that 911 call muted, and you can unmute yourself and take part of that 911 call. So once we have a notification created, then we just tell a route to use this notification. So we go under route notifications, and we'll notice they're all red right now because none of the routes are using notifications. So the trunking emergency route, we're going to say, yes, we want to use this notification. And now anytime our call goes out using the trunking emergency route, those notifications will trigger. Okay. I am good, Bree. I think we're time for Q&A.
Awesome.
So there's a Q&A section in the webinar here, and you can ask any questions. So there's a few here I'll get through first.
Okay.
Question of maximum number of channels. We don't really have a maximum. We have some customers that have 1,000 channels. We have lots of customers that have 1 or 2 channels. By default, it'll only let you buy 100 channels of the subscription or metered without contacting us. So you can buy up to 100, and from there, there's just some additional credit check we have to do because the liability gets really high when you're over that we just have to do with you, and we can increase your limit. Can you address the reliability of SIP trunking versus PST and PRI? I think SIP trunking is much more reliable, and the reason is you get the ability to set things like failovers you can't do easily with PRIs, dynamically reroute things. Your reliability of SIP is no less reliable than PSTN, and probably more, because you're not reliant on that single connection. In the PSTN world, if that piece of copper gets cut, you can't easily reroute those PRI calls or analog calls. And in the SIP world, you could have 2 different internet connections coming into your office, so you can fail over your internet connections in the event one goes down. So in most worlds, SIP should be much more reliable. Is there a place to check if a number can be ported? Not right now, Paul. It is coming, actually. It's on our roadmap. Right now, if you need to know if a number can be ported, is you open a port request, or you can open a support ticket and they can check it for you, but it's not in our portal currently. is the SBC on ClearlyIP side, or is the SBC customer equipment? There is no SBC, so I guess our soft switches can be considered SBCs, but we're directly connecting to a phone system. You could be connecting to an SBC that then connects to a phone system on your side. We don't require an SBC, or very rarely do our customers even use them. Usually we're directly connecting to the phone system. We have wiki guides for all kinds of different phone systems, from FreePBX, Vital, 3CX, just Asterisk, Avaya. You can see the list here. NEC, SwitchVox, lots of different systems here with documentation on how to connect to them. Asking, rolling out billing for partners. Does ClearlyIP send out billing for the partners' customers? I'm not sure what you mean by that, Eric. So we have two modes for partners. One mode is where you receive discounts and we bill you and you bill your customer. That's on you to bill. The other mode is agent mode, where we bill the customer direct at our established MSRP pricing, and then we agent commission you back based on what your partner agreement is every month. A commission on that. So that's part of our partner program. You can talk with your account manager. If you're a partner, they can explain it, or if you're not a partner, they can explain the program to you too. Could you go over the 911 and when it's being set up for a school for each room? Will they have to be multiple outbound routes set? No. So let's do this. Actually, I have another demo location here that has a bunch of 911 set up. Let me pull that one up for you. Be easier to show that. So if we go look at this location here, you'll see I have, under emergency services, I have 3 different callback profiles for 3 physical buildings. So a building I call Neenah, Appleton, and Oshkosh, which happens to be 3 separate cities. And then within that, I have a whole bunch of locations. I have the main Neenah location, the main Oshkosh, Appleton. But then in Appleton, I also have training room, the 2nd floor, the warehouse. These are additional locations. So let's do this. Let's take this key code, and we're going to go back to FreePBX. We're going to remove the one we used before quickly. We're going to add in this one and pair it instead. Save that. So now under emergency, so we'll see the 3 callback profiles. So callback profiles, we usually say 1 per building is all you need. So each physical building is the callback profile. It's basically your callback number. And then we set an outbound caller ID so we know which callback profile you want to use. Then we have our dispatchable locations. This is the meat of what goes to the PSAP. They get the callback number, but then they get this address info. So if you notice Appleton office, this is just the main address. But then we have Appleton office 2nd floor. We've added metadata of 2nd floor offices. This is where you might have classroom 101. And then we have Appleton office training room. So we added 2nd floor south end training room as the metadata. Appleton warehouse. So we added warehouse. So what we do is we have all these locations that you buy, and the locations have nothing to do with DIDs. So you don't need separate DIDs for each 911 record. You just buy your locations at MSRP of 50 cents a month with discounts for contracts and discounts to partners. And then once you have your locations under emergency device mapping, we just map them all. So we say Mike Smith is in the Appleton office and he's using the main office. And we have Paul in the Appleton office, but he's in the 2nd floor. That's all you do. It saves it as you pick each one. There's no reloads to do. And now Paul Smith, if he calls 911, it's going to send out the Appleton office 2nd floor information. I hope that explains what you're looking for. Is FreePBX running your cloud or your office? That's totally up to you. You can run FreePBX in a cloud, or you could run it in your office. How does this setup work with broadcast dialing? We don't accept dialer traffic. It's part of our terms of service. We don't provide service to dialer call centers. We're not a dialer service. For emergency locations, can that be set at the PBX level, or does it need to be set at the ClearlyIP level? You have to set it with us. We have to know the locations because we have to pre-register all those locations with the PSAPs and verify they're legit. So you buy all those locations from us. And in the free PBX world, I showed you how easy it is in this module. If you weren't using free PBX, the way you would set this up in your PBX is you would set the emergency caller ID for each of those extensions, or at the route level, however you do it in your PBX. You would use this caller ID here to tell us what callback profile to use. And then at the end of this, you would add in the 6-digit for the locations. You're actually sending us a 16-digit caller ID. We're abstracting the first 10 digits to figure out what profile you want, and the last 6 digits to tell us what location they're at. So when they call 911, you're sending us a 16-digit caller ID. What codecs do you recommend? EULA. In the PSTN world, there isn't really any Opus. There's some stuff. Some of the mobile carriers are finally starting to open up to let us do other codecs with them. But otherwise, everything that traverses the SS7 and PSTN is still just all EULA. Can you route SIP traffic by IP or just registration with username and password? By default registration, we do have the ability to do static IPs. You have to open a ticket with us. We don't let you update the static IPs. There's a lot of weirdities that can happen with it, but we can do IP. We can do IP off if need be. Will calls be maintained when failover to a redundant internet connection takes place? That would be 100% up to your phone system, and it re-inviting to the new IP, like that's a phone system thing. If we get a re-invite, so if your primary internet goes down and your secondary takes over, your PBX and routers are set up and they're going to re-invite back to us, we'll honor that re-invite and follow the media. Are you familiar with FreeSwitch? Are you compatible with that? Yeah, so we absolutely, I think we even have it in our guides. Yep, FreeSwitch. So we have very simple setup on FreeSwitch, and if you use Fusion PBX, which is based on FreeSwitch, we have a step-by-step guide how to do it in their GUI. ClearlyIP supports stir and shaken. We do. We're still waiting for all the carriers to finish their implementation, but we've done our side, and we will fully support stir and shaken. We do spam scoring already, included for free. So we include CNAM, inbound CNAM. So every time you receive a call, we do a CNAM dip lookup for you to give you the name for that number. We also do a spam rating on that. And if the calls come in with a high likelihood of spam, we prefix the call ID with CIP for ClearlyIP, CIP spam, and that will show up in your CNAM when you receive the call from us. Connections using ATAs, yeah, there's some stuff here for that too. Grandstream gateways, for example, we do have a guide on how to set up our trunks directly to a gateway. How much bandwidth generally required per call, and what would be acceptable latency? General bandwidth, generally 80 kilobytes. Everyone rounds to 100, but per channel, per call is 80 kilobytes of bandwidth. Latency, anything in VoIP under 200, 250 milliseconds is okay. Under 100 is optimal, but anything under 200 is okay for round traffic voice. Any other questions? I think that's all of them right now, Bree.
Those were some great questions. Well, we're coming up to 1 hour. I guess we just hit the 1 hour mark. So, Tony, what do you think? Should we call it?
Yeah, I think we're good.
Okay, great. Well, I just want to mention to everyone that there is a case study on our website. You can go to ClearlyIP's website and go to success stories. We've actually got a case study on a company called Dancing Pen Publications, LLC, that really outlines the benefits they received when they made the transition to ClearlyIP SIP Trunking. And we've got another event coming up next week, next Thursday. It's going to be a presentation on our portfolio of ClearlyIP phones. And this will be a great webinar. It's a general audience webinar, but also great for partners, resellers, agents, and end customers to learn about our IP phones and how they can be rebranded and really have all the technology you'll be looking for in some leading edge quality IP phones for your systems. So thank you so much for joining us today. There'll be a recording of this webinar posted on YouTube in the next 1 or 2 business days. Thanks again. Thanks, Tony. Have a great day.
No problem. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.